Hey there, Stampers. Welcome back to the treasure chest. Okay, in this video, I've got one 4x6 photo that I've printed with a white border that I'm going to document. I've got a piece of 12x12, and then I've got some 1 3/4 inch by 6 inch strips of DSP here. And I think I'm going to turn these into tags, and I'm going to do some stuff to the background, but let me just share what else I've pulled out here. I've pulled out 4 different ink colors. I've got soft seafoam, petal pink, flirty flamingo, and daffodil delight. And then I've also got Versamark and white embossing powder, because what I've done in advance is I've taken half a sheet of shimmery white embossing powder, or a shimmery white cardstock, and I've stamped the 2 flowers and the 2 larger leaves all over, like I filled the space. I stamped them with Versamark, sprinkled them with white embossing powder, and then embossed them. And I'm going to use an aqua painter and some inks to color them in and then die cut them. All right, so you'll want to do that. Some of them, I won't necessarily use them all for this particular project, but I might use some other ones on the leftovers on a different project. So I just filled up a whole half a sheet. And I do that often just because it saves time. And if I know I'm doing lots of projects using a particular suite or product, then I do that and it just saves me time on the next project. All right, I'm also going to do the packaging technique. I'm going to use soft seafoam. So I've got my stamp and spritzer with some water in it, my packaging. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to distress around the edges and do some tearing. I've got my embellishments. I've got my DSP here. I've got the bundle. Yeah, so I think that's all the supplies that I pulled out. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll speed this up and have some fun with it. Okay, so I'm going to start with the packaging technique. Some of you who've been around for a while, you know that I love to do this. It's just the perfect way to add a little bit of interest to a background, especially when you use a lot of white as your base, which I do. So you'll just smush your ink pad onto your piece of packaging and then spritz it with some water, and you want to spritz it enough so that it starts to pool, so that it moves around. And then just flip it over and add it to your cardstock. I like to have a paper towel handy so that I can dab off any excess moisture. It helps speed up the drying process. Now I'm taking my paper snips and kind of going around the edges just to distress it a little bit. And I will end up going back in and tearing a little piece of that border out in the top left corner. And then having a little piece of DSP peeking out from behind. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out which way it goes. All right, so here I'm just kind of tearing out a little piece, distressing it a little bit more, and then a little bit later I will add in some DSP. All right, so now I'm going to bring back my strips, and I'm going to take a 1/8 inch handheld punch and punch them all. So I've got a couple, 2 or 3 here. And then I'll do the same with these ones, because I want to turn them into tags. I actually saw a layout similar to this, or using this idea, on Pinterest, I think, or maybe Instagram. And I just thought it was such a great idea. And I thought this paper would be perfect for it. 6x6 paper is great for this particular idea. So I'm just adding in some baker's twine. I don't know, maybe about 6 inches, maybe a little bit less, maybe 5 inches for each one, folding it in half, feeding it through, and then feeding the ends through. And then all of these tags will get popped up using dimensionals. So you'll notice that as we get towards the end of this, I did not put a title on this layout at the time of filming this video because I wasn't 100% sure of what I was going to use. as my title. It's a picture of my mom and dad at our daughter's wedding back in June of last year. So afterwards, I had decided to die cut the word love from the Alphabet a la mode dies. And I think I'm going to do, like, even doing this voiceover, I have not yet decided on a title, but I think I'm going to do a day to celebrate love, or celebrating love, or something along those lines. So in the photo, you'll see my finished layout with the title. All right, so here I've just popped up all these tags. I started with the center one just so that I could get that centered. I'm using my quilting ruler to make sure that they're straight and that I have a relatively even border. I think it's a little wider on the left than on the right, but that's fine. I'm completely fine with that. So now I'm just looking through my scraps to see what I've got that would fit in behind. I kind of want to use one of the patterns that I've used on the layout itself for one of the tags, and I happen to have a little scrap of that green, the soft sea foam that's the right-hand tag. So I decide to use that. So I'm just going to flip that over, add a little bit of adhesive to the bottom, and then line that up with the top. And then you'll have a little bit of that soft sea foam peeking out from behind. I apologize that you can't see it. My layout's not quite down far enough. Okay, so now I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to color my flowers. So as I mentioned in the intro, I have stamped these with Versamark, sprinkled them with white embossing powder, and then embossed on shimmery white cardstock. And now I'm taking my water painter and some soft sea foam, and I'm coloring in the leaf images and just dabbing any excess moisture. And I just absolutely love how these flowers look done this way. I'm going to have to force myself to do something different with the flowers throughout the month, because this is my favorite way to do these flowers. So now I'm taking my water painter with some Daffodil Delight ink and coloring in pretty much the whole thing. And then I'm going to take some Flirty Flamingo and add some highlights with Flirty Flamingo. And the reason I chose to do it on shimmery white cardstock is because you can add a bit more moisture to the shimmery white cardstock without it pilling. Whereas our thick white and our regular white, it's just not the best cardstock to add water, and it doesn't allow you to blend as nicely. So shimmery white is a great option if you don't want to use watercolor paper. Okay, so now I'm going to color in one of the other flowers with Petal Pink. Again, just coloring in the whole thing, and then I'll add some highlights with the Flirty Flamingo. And I love doing this technique because it's so quick and easy, and there's no right or wrong way to do it, and you don't have to be careful. So I'm just adding in some extra, and by using the paper towel to kind of dab off, it dabs off the moisture that's on top of the embossed portion. So then you'll take the coordinating dies and die cut those. And I think I've got 5 flowers, 2 big ones, 3 little ones, and 5 leaves. So I'm just going to put my photo on top of my tags, and I just used flat adhesive. And then I'm going to do a larger cluster kind of in the lower right corner. So those will get popped up. I'll tuck a few leaves in. I don't know. I kind of want to use this entire collection for our daughter's wedding photos. And I might do that in our album. I'm doing 2 separate. I'm doing some pages for us, and then I'm doing some pages for her. So this is not really her style. So I'll probably use a different collection for her. I'm hoping there'll be something in the new catalog that inspires me. That's kind of her colors. So I'm going to add another little cluster up there. So we'll add the flower. And you can see that I'm kind of manipulating the flower a little bit to just give it a bit more dimension. trying to decide where to put this leaf. This is one of the 3 leaf images, and I decide to put it up there. And then I'm thinking about what I want to do for my title, and I can't decide. And I had this scrap left over from a different project. So this is just a scrap piece of DSP, and it had been attached to some of the gold fine shimmer paper cut with the scallop border from the Penned Flowers dies. So I just decided to kind of tuck it. Like, little things like that are perfect to save and use as tuck-ins here or there. And just that little pop of gold off to the right side, I just love it. So now I'm using some of the embellishments, and I'm going to use the Pretty Peacock dots. Now, if you don't have the dots, if maybe you bought the in color dots because the dots were sold out, then the Evening Evergreen ones would be the best substitute. So I'm just adding those with multi-purpose glue, and then that's all that I filmed. Again, in the photo, you'll see the finished layout with the title. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's inspiration. We will see you again next week.